Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. Really quickly, let's get to the Clemson-Ohio State game. And let me just say this, man. I am amazed how this Dabo Ohio State story has kind of taken on a life of its own. And it's funny, for people who kind of haven't really been following the story, and I talk about it a little bit with Zach Smith here in a couple minutes, but Dabo and a lot of these coaches have a vote in the coaches poll. For the coaches poll is the coaches actually voting on a top 25. It has no bearing on who makes the college football playoff. That is all dictated by the committee. But Dabo has a vote in the coaches poll, and he voted Ohio State number 11 in the country, behind Cincinnati, Florida, which had 3 losses, Iowa State, which had 3 losses, obviously Notre Dame. And when he was asked about it, he kind of just said, like, point blank, like, dude, I don't think a team that only played 6 games should be rewarded with a college football playoff berth. And on top of that, not only do I not think they should be rewarded, I think we're punishing the teams that actually started the season on time. Now, again, it's what I kind of just said about Notre Dame a minute ago. I think 2 things can be true. I think Ohio State can be one of the 4 most deserving teams in the playoff and that they should have a shot. Because, first of all, if they had played all their games that they were capable of playing, remember they had 2 games canceled because other teams couldn't go. If they had played all their games, they would have played 8 games. Texas A&M only played 9 games, so it's not as though the gap would have been that big. So I would have put Ohio State in my top 4. But I also do understand Dabo's point. It's like Florida, if Florida had only played 6 games, how different would their schedule have looked? What if they could have had the Alabama game canceled or the Florida game canceled or whatever? So I get Dabo's point, but I do think it's kind of an interesting, broader question about the idea of, is Dabo really kind of smart and poking the bear here with Ohio State? Now, what I would say with the Ohio State stuff very quickly is that I do believe in the last couple days, Dabo had media availability on Monday, and he did kind of walk back the comments. He sort of walked back the comments, which, first of all, I love. But what he basically said was, look, I voted him number 11 because I didn't have a single team that only played 6 games in the top 10. I voted him number 11 because I believe of the teams that played half a schedule, they were by far the best team. And he also said, I would add, Ohio State's really good. Ohio State could beat anybody in this playoff. So I get where Dabo, I give him credit for running it back, but he did still say, I did still vote him number 11. And I do wonder what kind of impact that has on the psyche of this game. Because Ohio State, although they have not looked great in many circumstances and many moments this season, they are still a really good football team, and I really don't know if you want to poke that bear and give them extra motivation coming into this game. First of all, remember, the reason that Ohio State fought so hard in July, August, September to have a football season, they feel like from the beginning they were a national championship caliber team, and they feel like they had the national championship ripped out of their hands last year by the refs in the Fiesta Bowl in Phoenix against Clemson. And so that team is already motivated. They've already been waiting a year for the opportunity to play you. And now you're going to poke the bear by saying, I don't know, they probably shouldn't be here, blah, 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 this and that. If I was Dabo, I just would have kept my mouth shut. Now, in a lot of ways, I give him credit because he knew he was going to get pushback. But I also understand, I also think it's a big, big, big mistake. The other thing that is worth noting about Ohio State, and I'm sure I've talked about it on this show, they really haven't had a full team all year long. That Big Ten championship game, Master Teague, who was coming into the game their most consistent running back, you might have gotten eclipsed by Trey Sermon, he was out for that game. Chris Olave, who's maybe their most consistent wide receiver outside of Garrett Wilson, was out for that Northwestern game. Ohio State still won. The game before against Michigan State, they had 4 starting offensive linemen out because of COVID. So we really haven't seen the best version of Ohio State yet, and now on top of that, you're going to give them extra motivation? I'm not saying it's wrong. I just don't know if that's the decision that I would have made. So that's my quick thoughts on the game. But I would also say that when I break it down at its simplest form, I still do think Clemson's going to win. And I think Clemson's going to win because of the problem that Ohio State's had all year, which is their secondary isn't very good. And by the way, it's not their fault. 3 of their starting defensive backs from last season, Jeff Okudah was a top 3 pick to Detroit. Jordan Fuller's balling out. I believe he's playing with the LA Rams down the road from where I live. And a second safety is also in the NFL. I'm blanking on who it was. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Ohio State fans listening. I forgot who your second safety was. But the point is that secondary has been suspect all year. They actually finished the year ranked 14th in the Big Ten in passing defense. And some of that's because they just gave up a few big plays to Ohio State. But when you talk about a team that finished allowing 261 yards in pass defense, I believe in yards per completion, they were about 10th about 12th out of 14 Big Ten teams. I just don't see how, unless you're getting constant pressure on Trevor Lawrence, I don't see how you stop that passing offense. So my lean would be Clemson. I think it's -6.5 at this point. I do think they win. But I don't know that I agree with Dabo Swinney poking the bear, going after Ohio State. It just isn't a move that I would make, but who's to say for sure, and these games will be fun to watch. Really quickly, on Wednesday, we do get the Cotton Bowl, Oklahoma versus Florida. Don't know that I have any great strong opinion on this. I will say Florida's been pretty devastated by opt-outs. Kyle Pitts, the star wide receiver / tight end, is out. Trevon Grimes, the second number 2 wide receiver, is out. Marco Wilson, ironically the kid who threw the shoe that cost him the LSU game, he has opted out. So Florida is going to be down some star players. I'd probably lean Oklahoma. I also think Oklahoma has not got enough credit. Their defense has been really good over the last couple weeks. On New Year's Day, we do get Georgia and Cincinnati. I believe that's New Year's Day. It might be the 31st. But the point being, Georgia, Cincinnati here in a couple days. I would lean Georgia. Look, I think that this Cincinnati thing is a great thing. They're a great story. They're incredibly well coached. And if they lose to Georgia, it's not an indictment. Oh, they were so terrible. They were so overrated. But I do think Georgia, I'll give them credit. Once they put JT Daniels in the lineup, it's been a completely different deal. And I also think that they want to build some momentum going into 2021, where if JT Daniels plays like he did over the final 3, 4, 5 games of this season, they could have a ton of success. So I would lean Georgia in that game. Texas A&M, UNC, I would actually lean Texas A&M, not because they're from the big bad SEC and they're amazing, but UNC had a bunch of guys opt out. And I just don't know that they're going to have enough firepower and enough starring personnel to have success there. But that's it. I think that's it. I think I'm going to get out of here. That is all for this segment of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Make sure to stay tuned. Zach Smith will be joining me momentarily to break down the college football playoff games. And again, I think a really fun conversation about Jim Harbaugh, about can he rebuild the staff? What is it like to be on a dysfunctional staff where you know things are not going well? And he also talks a little bit about Urban Meyer and the opportunity for him to coach in the NFL. Before we get out of here,